Welcome back. As South Africans wait for the anticipated announcement of Cabinet, there are calls for competent leadership to restore effective governance. The Center for Development and Enterprise Research Director Stefan Schirmer co-authored an article in which he calls for a different policy agenda. He joins me now to further discuss this topic this evening. Stefan, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. Now, the Center for Development and Enterprise was established in 1995 as an independent policy research and advocacy think tank. The organization right now is concerned over the stagnation of South Africa in the last 15 years. Where do you think we began going wrong as a country?
That's a good and topical question, but state capture that was sort of initiated post 2008 is definitely a turning point in some ways, and that's contributed to this ongoing problem that we've got of governance effectively collapsing in many ways. And that's one of the biggest contributions to our economic crisis. We're in an economic crisis, and this is something we cannot forget. This is the number one issue for us at CDE and for the country. And as we're dealing with politics at the moment, and it's understandable that it's all about politics now, but we really need to focus very, very soon and urgently on implementing the reforms that we need to get us out of this situation, because, we need to get out of this crisis urgently.
Most certainly. I mean, in your research with regards to seeing where the stagnation and the decline of South Africa, you mentioned corruption. What were some of the pointers and the highlights that stood up or stood out for you in terms of where we need to start fixing as a country?
Yeah, well, we need to start fixing the country by fixing the state is one of the first priorities. It's clear, that the collapse of our electricity supply, the incredible crisis that we've got in the network industries, especially ports and rail, are undermining our growth in a very direct way. We're losing many percentage points of GDP growth as a result of that. And that all relates back to governance. And then there's a whole lot of other issues. And, the looming crisis of water that's coming towards us is another one of those. So, we need a better state. We need to fix it. And, we think that one of the best places to start is to think about leadership and to think about the top levels of the bureaucracy and how we can use this opportunity of a new government to start doing something about that, to bring in effective people, to bring in people that'll start, setting a better example, to start expecting more things from the people below them, and start turning this government around. The state, I mean.
Of course. Cadre deployment was one that was at the forefront when it comes to finding competent leaders and the need for restoring effective governance. Now, in the GNU negotiations, the DA has put on the table being a part of a selection process of having directors general of the ministries that they will lead. Would this carry forth the notion of cadre deployment, or would you recommend this be approached differently?
Yes. This is a complicated issue. Cadre deployment is a bad thing. It's a bad thing because it puts issues of loyalty, of connections, of all sorts of things above issues of competence and whether you can do the job well. And that has to stop. And it's an incredibly large part of the problem, and that has to stop. But at the same time, when you have ministers who are committed to reform and who want to start getting their department changed and start doing different things, they need to have people they can work with at the top levels. And it's quite broadly acknowledged by the experts in this field that it would actually be better for ministers to appoint DGs, as long as that process is done in a sort of much more regulated way, especially bringing in the Public Sector Commission, which we believe should play an important oversight role in ensuring that that the whole process doesn't get politicized, and that it isn't about those kinds of issues. It is about merit. So, you do want a leadership team that works together. That's important. But you don't want cadre deployments.
So in essence, what you're saying is you agree to the fact that ministers would need people who understand what their mandate is in terms of what it is that they need to do, but those people should be appointed on merit, you say. How do you balance that out?
Yeah, well, you want the right ministers to start with. And like I said, you want a whole different kind of selection process, which we set out quite carefully in our report, where you strengthen the issue of having to pass induction tests for candidates. You have, like I said, the PSC providing an oversight role, and they need to be also very strongly capacitated and focused on the issue of people meeting certain requirements in order to get the job. That they have a strong role in making sure that there's no unethical issues connected to the candidates, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not going to be perfect. It's impossible to do this perfectly through legislation and even through rules, but there's a lot you could do to make the situation much better.
Of course. And one of the other points has been creating and selecting a smaller cabinet. Do you think that with the announcement of the cabinet in a few days, hopefully, that we would see a more reduced cabinet? And what would that do in terms of directly having service delivery being made at a level that people should be getting at this point?
Right. I'm not sure about the smaller cabinet actually happening, although I really want it to be the case. Again, patronage and things like that have ensured that we've got a much too large cabinet, one that isn't focused, one that isn't streamlined, and doesn't give us, the sort of value for money approach that we need. We would prefer a much smaller cabinet. We've come up with a proposal of having 20 instead of 30 ministers, and sort of bringing different sections together, not having small departments that duplicate what other bigger departments do, etc. And I really do, like I said, I hope that in amongst all of this politics, the focus is on making sure that this new government and this new cabinet is going to focus on reform, on getting growth going again, on reducing poverty and unemployment, because that's what this new government needs to do.
Most certainly.
For various reasons.
Of course. Thank you so much, Stefan. And we certainly do hope that as we wait with bated breath for that cabinet to be announced, that, like you say, it is going to be a cabinet that will be able to take South Africa forward. That was the Center for Development and Enterprise Research Director, Stefan Schirmer, speaking to us there about good governance in the next cabinet. Your headlines in a moment. Do stay with us.